49 states, it's just basketball, but this is Indiana. Our two star players, Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam, put our team on their backs, and they just decided that we were not going to lose this game today.
And that MVP is Pascal Siakam.
First of all, shout out Indy, man. It's been such an amazing experience for me so far. From the first day I landed here, like the love has been amazing. Chad, KP, just unbelievable, man. Like, you know, first class organization.
And then tonight, sometimes the unexpected happens. And sometimes Thomas Bryant catches fire from deep.
Yeah, Thomas, yeah!
You're not going to have to worry about any questions about the team trying harder than you did tonight, because it was obvious, man. You guys did a great job. Congratulations. Look, you are the longest tenured member of this team. 10 seasons wearing this uniform. And now you're going to the NBA Finals, man. Tell me what that does for you.
Woo, man, it's been a long time coming, man. Come on. Man, first of all, man, I got to give a huge shout out to the Simons, man. They never stopped believing in me. This front office, this organization is amazing. I've spent a third of my life here, man. It's crazy. You know, I've really grown up here with y'all. And it's so validating just to get this in this fashion against one of our rivals 25 years later. And I'm just excited for what's next, man. We got 4 more.
But for the first time in 25 years, they are going to the NBA Finals.
Hello, Pacer fans, and welcome back to the Pacers Fever Show. I'm your host, Logan, and we are an instant reaction here after Game 3 of the NBA Finals, in which the Pacers take at home 116-107 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's right, the Pacers have won a finals game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It's the first win in the NBA Finals on their home floor since the year 2000, back when Reggie was doing it. And Reggie was there tonight with his kids, and they were sitting courtside, and along with John Halliburton courtside, and got to see a huge and impressive win for the Indiana Pacers, coming off of a Game 2 where, I tell you, these days in between NBA Finals games can be brutal at times, just because, like they say all the time, the players that have been in the NBA Finals, players that have been in the playoffs, say that after a loss, it feels like you're never going to win again. And then after a win, it feels like you can never lose again in the playoffs. And that's exactly the way it feels as a fan of this team. When you lose a game, it feels like the world is caving in. And over the last 48 hours or so, when you're consuming content for the NBA Finals, of course, you want to listen to everything that people have to say. And I think we all do a pretty decent job of blocking some of it out, but it just, it starts to wear on you. It probably starts to wear on some of the players as well. They just want to get back out there and prove these people wrong. And I think ultimately the Pacers do that tonight. They bounce back in a very impressive way to gain control of the series. Once again, they go up a game over the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have won over 80 games regular season and postseason combined. We're going to talk about all the things that happened in Game 3. We're going to talk a little bit about Game 4 and what it means, but we're going to do a separate preview episode that won't be as long. I always say that, but I don't feel it'll be as long of an episode. We do have only one day in between these two games. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this instant reaction sometime in the early morning of Thursday, June 12th. I'm recording this after the game, so it is a late night. These are always late night recording because the game started at 8:30. But we're going to talk about Game 3 just because we like an instant reaction after the game, try to digest what we just witnessed, go over some really key components to this game, and I think the adjustments that were made from the Pacers that really were the difference, and then talk about some takeaways as we head into Game 4, which will be Friday night at 8:30, June 13th, at Gainbridge Fieldhouse on ABC, and all of the exciting things surrounding that game. We will talk about what it means for the Pacers and how they can prepare themselves to compete against this Oklahoma City Thunder team that has also not lost back-to-back games in these playoffs. So uh, Friday, just because of everything at stake, the desperation that Oklahoma City will feel, and the desperation I think that the Pacers have to feel in that moment, because if they head back to Oklahoma City tied 2-2, it becomes a best of 3 series, and Oklahoma City steals back home court advantage. And we know just how difficult it is to win at Paycom. We've done it once, but I mean, the Thunder have controlled this series and had controlled the series for about 94 or 95 minutes throughout game 1 and game 2. So let's get into game 3. What happened? Some of the adjustments that we saw. What were some of the key highlights from the game? And we'll talk about that fourth quarter, just because it had so many different moving pieces and things that happened that I feel are great takeaways for game 4 for this Pacers team. Some things they can build on, but also some things that I think they did so well throughout the game. But to highlight the very beginning of this game, I just want to talk about the fact that Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam ball out in game 3. There was a big conversation throughout the week of what can Pascal and Tyrese do to bounce back from a horrible performance in game 2 from the both of them. I think that this defense, it's so good, and you see bits and pieces of it tonight, but I felt like the Pacers were starting to figure out the puzzle that is this defense. And again, the intensity and the whistle's a little different, I think, away from home. I mean, you get into Paycom, it becomes this vacuum of OKC fans and just that intensity, the environment, the noise level in there. It just plays so much of a factor in these games. And I think that you can't discredit just what these two fan bases mean to their respective teams. I mean, I think that the energy tonight from Gainbridge Fieldhouse was the most electric I'd ever seen from a TV watching standpoint for the Pacers. But again, Paycom is right up there as probably 1A and 1B, these two franchises having the best home base that you can go and pretty much win every game that you play on your home court, just because of how good of an advantage that your home fans provide. And so getting away from Paycom, there was some confidence. And I talked about this in our game 2 preview, or sorry, our game 3 preview out of game 2. And I said that Oklahoma City's defense, while still very good, is not as good when you take it on the road. And I think a lot of that is, you're not going to get the same whistle or lack thereof when you're on the opposing team's floor. I did think that the officiating crew started this game with a pretty tight whistle, but as the players started to get adjusted to that, I did feel like they did let a lot of those plays at the rim just kind of play out. There weren't a lot of what I noticed, a lot of shooting fouls that were egregious or just not shooting. I mean, I feel like they've got most of those calls right tonight. And I know there was a lot of chatter on Twitter that the refs were awful, but to be honest with you, I felt like there was a bit of a tight whistle. I think with the way that the Thunder can kind of break you down with SGA, that the Pacers were going to get more fouls, just because SGA puts you out of so many people out of positions. So you're just going to get that with OKC. I didn't feel like there was a tremendous advantage, though, from either side as far as the whistle was concerned, because I feel like it did end up balancing out the free throw percentages and how many they ended up shooting, just because I think so many times we like to get wrapped up in what the officials call or don't call. But at the end of the day, I thought for the most part, it ended up being a pretty fair whistle. I mean, OKC gets 30 foul shots, Pacers 22. And while that's a bigger margin, I do feel like OKC is a better team at getting to the foul line. I think that they are much more intentional about that, where, the Pacers have a couple of guys that really get to the foul line. And one of them is Benedict Mathurin, who played great minutes tonight, 22 minutes for Ben, and Pascal Siakam also gets to the line quite a bit. But outside of that, you don't typically have guys getting to the line as much, where they've got a lot of players that do get to the line. I mean, Chet gets to the line a lot. The way Jalen Williams plays, he plays at the rim a lot, so he's going to get to the line. I mean, he's going to draw contact there, and SGA is going to draw contact. But if you look outside of those three players that I just named, the three, Jalen Williams, Holmgren, and SGA, the next person down the line was Cason Wallace and Cruz, so they both had 2 foul shots. So those three players, I mean, they are very good at getting contact at the rim. They are very good at exploding to the rim, and I think that's what makes them so dangerous, is that they do put themselves in very difficult positions for their defenders, and they do capitalize on contact. And there's a lot of and ones. They're really good at drawing that contact, and they're strong. They're good finishers. So again, I didn't really see much of a discrepancy there. There were a couple calls that maybe could go the Pacers' way, but then again, you could probably argue the same thing from Oklahoma City standpoint. If you go back and just look at the calls that were made, I felt like, again, this has been probably the best officiating that I've seen in the playoffs in a long time. I mean, I've really had no complaints about the way that these games have been called. And Oklahoma City, I think if you go back and watch the tape throughout the regular season and through the postseason, you might be able to, I think you might notice that they do get away with a lot more than some of the other teams as far as just reaching or grabbing. And tonight it did. It felt like Tony Brothers and crew really took the time to prepare for that, because it seemed like early they noticed a lot of that grabbing that they didn't really notice in game 1 or game 2, the officiating crews. So I felt like there was a intentional focus tonight from the officiating about players holding, grabbing, reaching. Like they did try to eliminate that early on in this game. And then I felt like it really allowed for the game to be a little bit more loose as far as the whistles called towards the end of the game. And in the fourth quarter, I felt like they just let these guys play. And that's all you can ask for, is when it comes down to a close game, don't let the officials get involved to where they make the difference in the game. And they didn't tonight. So when that happens, I always feel like we can't really harp on what the officiating did or didn't do. But overall, I mean, like I said, the reason why I got into this conversation was just how good Tyrese and Pascal were from game 2 to game 3. I mean, all the conversation on the talk shows, and Legler and Nick Wright, who I'd love to tweet at multiple times, Cowherd, Skip Bayless, the talking heads that we typically hear from, of course, are calling for the Pacers season to end after game 2, just because of how outmatched they looked. There was a lot of discussions today. I was listening to pretty much everybody that I could that are very divisive online, just because I kind of like that, because I want to hear what that other side is saying. And then also, when the Pacers prove them wrong, it makes me feel justified in what I believe. So I know we probably all do that some. We like to listen to the talking heads, and just because for as long as the Pacers have existed, I feel like they've always been the people that have proven those guys wrong. So it's a lot of fun listening to them. And then tomorrow will be a lot of fun, because they're gonna try to figure out how the Pacers won this game. And tonight, the Pacers were just the better team. They were the better team tonight, and we haven't seen that better team from Indiana, at least, at all throughout this series. I feel like the end of the game, the fourth quarter at game 1, was the only time we saw this Pacer team do what they did to other teams. And tonight felt, again, like the Pacers of old that we saw throughout the whole postseason, against the Knicks, against the Cavs, against the Bucks. I mean, we saw a team that never said die, punch back when they needed to. And then when the going gets tough, the thing that I just loved about this Pacers team, and it's just ingrained in them, so it's going to keep going and growing, their resiliency. I mean, this team is, because I'm not gonna lie, there's times where you, as a fan, you're like, gosh, how many times can they keep punching back, right? Like, how many more times can they have these buzzer beaters or come back from 10 to 15 in the last fourth quarter, in the fourth quarter? How many times can they allow these teams to go on 8-0 runs and then take a 6-point lead in the fourth quarter and just never fall flat? I mean, this team is unbelievable in the way that they cope with adversity and adjust to the challenges that they face and in live action, like, or like in real time. That's what I'm trying to go for. In real time, this team, and kudos to Rick Carlisle and his coaching staff, because even timeouts, I feel like they're advanced. When we've had coaches in the past that aren't Rick Carlisle, timeouts felt more of just kind of like the, "Oh my gosh, let's just slow down. Let's just stop the bleeding." Carlisle's timeouts, when we come out of the timeouts with Rick, I feel like the team is fired up. They're intense. Like, they come out of timeouts really well, and I think it just speaks to how good this coaching staff continues to be and has been for years, and just the culture that Rick has built, the trust in his players. I mean, there's not many people that would have Benedict Matherin's trust at this point, but I feel like Ben really does trust Rick. He trusts the process, because tonight, Benedict Matherin was he and TJ McConnell were the biggest differences in this game, and they didn't really have that game in game 2 nor game 1. Ben Shepherd, right? I just feel like there's so many people out there that are like, Rick's gotta shorten the rotation. He's gotta make changes, and he does tweak things and tinker with different moments in the game, but when it comes down to making the adjustments, and tonight you saw it with Tyrese and Pascal, right? Very long-winded to get back to my second point here on the rundown. So if you're watching on YouTube, I have a rundown where I talk about different points from the game, and you can go see what the talking points are going to be for this episode. And if you're listening, or sorry, if you're watching over on YouTube, we also have the audio version where you can find us anywhere you find podcasts. But Tyrese and Pascal were effective tonight because of adjustments that I saw from the both of them and the intentionality of their team to go from game to game to learn from different moments of adversity and moments where they're not good. I think that's what makes them very good, is they are very honest with themselves. I'd love to hear a film session with this team, because I've got to feel there's so much accountability with all of these players, and they hold each other accountable. And I think there's this sense of pride that they take from getting better in the next game. Like, it always feels like this team is, we didn't come out and play with enough heart. We didn't come out and play with the enough intensity. Let's ramp that up. And as they get older, that will just come. But this is still a young team. I think people forget that, right? Outside of Siakam and Turner and TJ, like, this is still a very young team. And I mean, Miles Turner, he's 29, so it's not like he's old, but it, it's amazing to me how, and same thing with OKC, how well that these teams have played in the NBA finals. Like, this is the world's biggest stage for basketball. And besides the game 1 jitters that you would normally get, every veteran team would get, tonight was one of the best NBA finals games. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Pacers fan, but tonight was just, felt like punch for punch with these two teams. And it felt like two giants going after one another. And it was cool to see, because as a Pacers fan, you've been considered the David throughout this whole series. So to see them show up, and to have if you listen to the intro of this podcast, I still have the intro going from the Eastern Conference final win. I'm not really going to change it up too much, because highlights aren't out yet, and I didn't have time to download all that and clip it all out and make it into the intro. So there's no highlights from game 3 at the beginning of this podcast, this intro. But you listen to Rick talk about how important Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam are for this team's success. It's the reason they've gotten to the point where they are this season. And that's not trying to discredit anybody else on this team. Every single person on this team has a role and has been a star in that role for a majority of the season, outside of those first 25 games. And I mean, not Pascal, he was good the whole season, it felt like. But I do. I'm just impressed with the adjustments that they made because Tyrese Halliburton has really struggled against this OKC team. I think he's averaging like 14 points a game, or had been going into this game against OKC. Against Lou Dort, he's got like, I think they said that he's gotten total like 20 something points against Dort, which is not good. But he, again, I think coming into this game when it first started, like OKC felt like they were in control in that first quarter. It felt very similar to what we had experienced in game two. But then when the bench came in, it ignited something. And I think, honestly, I think TJ McConnell and Benedict Mathurin gave the Pacers this blueprint of how to attack this team going forward. And without their two performances tonight, I think they lose the game. And they carried them for over a quarter, the two of those, the two players there, McConnell and Mathurin. But we'll get into them because this point's about Tyrese and Pascal. But I felt like Pascal and Tyrese were much more aggressive in that first quarter. I think that the Pacers were much more intentional about getting Siakam and Halliburton started early, getting them their points, getting them their shots, putting them in positions they like to be in. And I did feel like the Pacers were um, much more focused on what they wanted to do and how to break down this defense. I think we saw some things that they'll continue to carry into the rest of the series. And some of that was the way they were screening. Oftentimes you saw Pascal being the first screener and then Turner being a second screener. And then there was one time Ben Shepherd screen, then Siakam screen, and he didn't get to Miles, but Miles was coming up to screen again. They were throwing as many bodies as they could to get Ty free in certain moments. And I feel really good about what they were doing. And something I noticed that they were doing, and this is probably something OKC will adjust to, but Pascal early on was getting to about the free throw line or top of the key, and he was kind of in and around the elbow at times. And a Miles Turner screen would come, or Aaron Nesmith would come up to screen. But instead of getting all the way to the screen, he would pick up his dribble and throw it into the paint area where Pascal was. Because of the way the screen was coming, it kind of drew the defender away from the passing lane, and they were able to just immediately skip going to the screen and just threw it right into Pascal. Because I think what happens is the defenders are setting themselves up to get ready to try to switch on the screen or to show on a screen. But when they were doing that, they were blitzing too far up. And so Tyrese, as soon as they blitzed him to try to eliminate that screen, he would take the ball and just throw it into, and TJ McConnell did this a ton, where you'll notice TJ, instead of going all the way to the screen, he would dead stop, and just throw it right into Pascal on the move into the paint area, or like right at the free throw line where Pascal was. And then TJ would continue running off the pick, and then there would be some handoffs, but also it allowed for the spacing to kind of uh, form in itself. I don't really know how to explain that. Like, it allowed them to space out naturally because the screen would come up, they would replace the point guard where the point guard came from. TJ's running out into the lane in which the screen came from, or breaking towards the basket. And then Siakam could make the decision whether he was going to hit the person running off the screen, off the off ball screen, or if he was going to take the ball and start his move towards the basket. And early in the game, he put guys into a blender like he usually does. Had 7 points, some great shots. He was 3 of 4, got to the foul line, rebounded it pretty well. And the change there, well, actually, you know what? We'll hold that off for the next bullet point. Tyrese Halliburton in the first quarter, 2 for 3 from the field. He was 1 for 1 from 3-point land. He had 5 points, 4 assists. He had 2 turnovers, 1 block, 1 steal. He was all over the place defensively in this game. I thought he had a really good defensive game, and he was a big difference. And then Siakam had some moments tonight too defensively. He had a huge block on Caruso that Caruso had slipped back door, had gotten wide open under the basket, and Siakam was able to recover and ended up swatting the basketball. But I thought that tonight they were very good about getting the ball to Siakam early. And then when Siakam was opening up the offense and they would try to come down and swipe the ball away from him, Siakam was very aware and could feel the bodies that were coming towards him and was able to distribute off of those double teams. And when Toppin checks in, I thought he was really good in that first quarter. He had 6 points. There were a lot of moments where he was able to get free to the basket or get really good open positions or open running lanes in the passing lanes because they would try to come up and either kind of show down towards and cover or like double up Siakam at points and couldn't recover back to Obi, or Obi would make a backdoor cut because they were trying to throw 2 guys at Siakam when Siakam got closer into the paint. And Pascal was really good about noticing when that was coming and was able to distribute in and around the paint. And Pacers got some really good looks in the first quarter, but ultimately Oklahoma City really withstood that punch because Chet Holmgren was phenomenal in this early part of the game. He had 13 points in the first quarter, and then Dort hit 3 of 3 from 3-point land. So with those two doing what they did in that first quarter, Chet 4 of 5 from the field and then hit 5 of 6 free throws, it slowed the game down. And I think the Thunder were playing at their pace. They were getting turnovers. The Pacers turned it over 5 times in that quarter. So they were getting their defensive stops. They were turning the ball over. And Oklahoma City was capitalizing on those turnovers. And again, like I said, Chet was really good. Shea had 6, although he didn't shoot it too well early in this game. And I thought throughout the night didn't shoot it as well as he has in the last couple of games. But Dort and Chet really took the first quarter by storm and gave, no pun intended, but gave the Thunder an 8-point lead. So the Thunder lead 32-24 going out of the first quarter. And that's when the bench unit comes in for the Indiana Pacers. Because in the second quarter, the Pacers score 40 points against this Oklahoma City defense that is the most one of the best and one of the most historic defenses. The Pacers score 40. They put up a 40 spot in that second quarter. And it was really, I think, the difference. Oklahoma City has a better third quarter and really stymie the offense. But because of that second quarter, I felt like the Pacers unlocked some things in that second quarter, like I said, with Mathurin, the way that he played, and McConnell. They were able to get into spots off the dribble and towards downhill towards the rim and into the paint with relative ease, and then made some really good passes out of there, made some great tough shots. Mathurin especially made some really tough baskets with his left hand. But that second quarter, I mean, both of them exploded on the offensive end. And then TJ McConnell, we'll talk about TJ. But first, I wanted to talk about Ben here. 14 points in the second quarter, 5 of 6 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3, 3 of 3 from the free throw line. He had 2 rebounds, 1 block. He was flying all over the place defensively. And while he doesn't shut down SGA as much, I felt like he did cause SGA some problems at times. Like even just his physicality, I think, wore down on SGA when he was guarding him some. But Ben played 10 minutes in that second quarter, and he's got this habit of playing about 10 to 12 minutes and scoring about 20. So his scoring ratio is great in the minutes that he plays. The limited time that he gets and the ability he has to score, that's what makes him so special. I think that's what makes the Pacers so excited, just because of that is a talent that you cannot teach. And he, as he continues to grow, this is his first postseason experience, and he had his biggest game as a Pacer. I want to say, like, I know he had like a 38-point game against, I think it was Boston or New York, but in the regular season. But this tonight was clutch. Tonight was he led the Pacers to this win early on in this game. So without him, they don't get this done, I don't think. But TJ McConnell, we'll talk about TJ here. So he was only 1 of 3 from the field. He had 4 of 4 from the free throw line. He had 4 assists, so he was great at initiating the offense. He was really good about getting in the paint. Like, he is so fast that the OKC defenders do not really have much of an answer for him. He does get around them pretty quickly. And then if he's not making mistakes as he gets into the paint, man, he is so dangerous because he's got that little turning floater kind of jump shot thing that he throws up there sometimes, and it is very effective. He's a very effective scorer from that range, and he did have 6 points. But the biggest thing here in this in this second quarter was he had 2 of the McConnells where the Pacers will score a basket, and the Oklahoma City Thunder inbounder is not really paying attention, or the guy getting the ball isn't paying attention, and McConnell comes flying up and just takes the ball as soon as they inbound it, and he is able to score. I think he scored off of one and then they got a Benedict Mathurin layup, I believe it was, off of another. But again, they fell asleep. He took advantage of it. He energized the crowd. I mean, the Pacers got everything that they possibly wanted from TJ and Benedict and Obi Toppin in this first half. I thought all 3 of them were really good. And don't discredit what Ben Shepherd did, right? I mean, Ben Shepherd, he had a couple steals tonight. I mean, reading the passing lanes, I thought that he did a really nice job on SGA tonight, and he'd struggled with him in the last 2 games when he'd been on him. But the Pacers threw 7 defenders, I think Doris Burke said, at SGA, which, I mean, probably not on purpose, but there were 7 different people that guarded SGA at certain points. But again, like I said, I think Aaron Nesmith, there's times where he'll cause SGA some problems. I thought Nemhard was really good on SGA tonight. Ben Shepherd will cause problems. McConnell can be annoying and a nuisance at times. Benedict Mathurin can be annoying and a nuisance at times, just because their physicality and just their desire to just compete. TJ and Ben and other Ben. So again, I thought the bench just came out and just showed out. I think at one point they were up 19-0 on the OKC bench. So the Pacers bench had outscored the OKC bench 19-0. And that was early on in the game. I think it was second quarter. I think it was. Yeah. I think it was the second quarter. By the end of the half, I think the Pacers bench had like a 19 or 20 point advantage on the OKC bench. The defense. So looking at the defense, it's gotten so much better. It's a top 10 defense. And this is something that all the national media, you can tell, one, that they don't watch the Pacers, but two, they remember them from last season, and they're like, man, this Pacer defense was bad last year. But now that they've had time to catch up and research the Pacers, they realize how good this defense can be. I tweeted this. If you would have read this tweet, so the tweet was something that sounded a little bit like, the Pacers defense is ultimately what got them back into the game in the third quarter when they kind of let it slip a little bit, and is the reason why they beat the Thunder in the fourth, their defense. So if you'd have read that last year, you'd have been like, there's no way. Like, there's no way that this Pacers defense is an X factor in some of these games. But I think it's the difference in this series. I think it's going to be. I think as historic as this Oklahoma City Thunder defense has been, the Pacers defense in crunch time has always been very good, and at least this season. And I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough, because if you think back, right, to these comebacks that they've had, the reason why they've had these comebacks, and I get it that some of these teams kind of let off the gas a little bit, so their offense is not as efficient as it would be in a tighter game. But these comebacks in the playoffs are only possible because their defense puts the clamps on you. Because if the Pacers are down 15-10 with 2 minutes left and their defense is just letting them get to the bat, then there's no comeback, right? But then if you look at games that they've won by 8 to 10, their defense has shown up and put the clamps on people. Jalen Brunson in that last series, Donovan Mitchell and the other series, right? So again, I think there are moments where their defense and how great they've been all season has been overlooked because of how bad they were last year. But I mean, this team is very good defensively now. And I never thought I would say that. And I think something that's helped obviously is Tyrese Halliburton has become less of a liability and more of a bonus to have defensively. Like, yes, they will attack him, and yes, he can get exposed at times. He has made some huge defensive plays in the playoffs. Like, we should put a montage together. There has to be 10 or 12 defensive plays. He made a couple tonight where he was reading passing lanes, and he would come out of nowhere and just steal the basketball or block shots. He's very good at kind of like hawking around and looking for opportunities to swipe blocks off of people. He's very good at blocking shots when guys aren't ready for him to be there. And when they beat him, he's pretty good at getting back defensively and knocking the ball away from them. So I think that's an underrated part of his game. And I think he's gotten so much better defensively that he actually does things now that really impact the game defensively. And that's what you want, right? I know he's not ever going to be a lockdown defender, but you want him to be impactful on both ends. And he's gotten to that point. He gets deflections. He's really good at the screens, like covering and kind of helping out on screens, allowing his defenders to get, or his teammates to get back on their defensive assignments through screens, helping them fight through screens, showing over and making sure that the person's not getting to the lane off of the pick and roll. I feel like Tyrese is just so much better in that aspect. But again, their defense just it came to play in that fourth quarter and was the big difference in the fourth. OKC only had 18 points in the fourth, only had 29 in the third, only 28 in the second. Like, they only had one quarter where they scored over 30 points, and that's usually not very typical of that Pacers defense from last year. It's changed so much in the year that they've had together, that cohesiveness. And then when you score 40 points in the second quarter and 32 in the fourth, those are really good scoring numbers for two quarters, and you should win most of those games. So I'm really fascinated by I wouldn't say the lack of coverage, because I guess like it's not really fair to the national media as much because they don't really watch the Pacers. But like, if you watch the Pacers and you don't realize how good their defense is, just go look at the numbers. Like, look how good they've been defensively. And I think it speaks volumes to Jenny Busick and Rick Carlisle. So yeah. The Thunder, where the Pacers did struggle some defensively tonight, but I think part of it was their game plan. Part of, their game plan is not to let them shoot this well from three, but their game plan, I think, limiting SGA, doubling up when they think they need to double to get the ball out of his hands, and making other guys hit shots. They hit their shots tonight. Some good contested. I thought the ones that Dort hit were pretty. I mean, a lot of them were contested threes. He's got the highest arc on a ball I think I've ever seen. There was one time he shot one, I thought he was joking. I thought the shot clock was running out. I was like, why did he shoot that? So, they went in. Never mind. He's got such a high arcing shot, and he's not been like a great 3-point shooter. I mean, he's been very streaky. So he's had 2 good games against the Pacers in the postseason, and he had a really good game in the regular season. I think he was 5 or 6 in the regular season in one of those games. And again, without him, I mean, this is probably a double-digit blowout. So it felt like the 3-point shooting was what ultimately was keeping OKC in it. But when the Pacers went full defensive mode in that fourth quarter, OKC wasn't hitting any shots. SGA was having a very difficult time because the paint was just so clogged up, and the Pacers just put the clamps on them and pull it out. I mean, this is a huge, huge win for the Pacers and what it means going forward in this series. Because if they lose tonight, backs against the wall, they have to win game 4 would have been an absolute must win. Because if you go down 3-1, returning back to OKC, that's over. I mean, even if you went down 3-1, that I think the series was over anyway. But what a game! Like, I think there were moments where it kind of slowed down, so it didn't feel as great at times. Like in the first quarter, it was a little rough, and in the third quarter, it got a little rough just because both teams were kind of struggling. The second and fourth quarters were great, especially for the Pacers. Fourth quarter, not so much for OKC, but this game had everything. I mean, it had the scoring, it had great bench production, had role players stepping up. Chet was really great tonight. I thought J-Dub was excellent tonight. SGA wasn't that good tonight. He was not that good. He had 24 points tonight. 24 points on 9 of 20 shooting. The Andrew Nembhard effect in full force. 45% from SGA, 1 of 3 from 3-point range, only shot 6 foul shots tonight. He did have 8 rebounds, but only 4 assists. So this was something that was very interesting to me. I think it was Zach Lowe that brought this up in his podcast. I love Zach. He was talking about the fact that the Pacers can live with an SGA 3-4 assist. When SGA is scoring 30 points and has 9 assists, he's torching you. Like they're all torching you because he's setting up his teammates. He's getting everybody involved, and then he's dropping 30 on your head. Like that's a beast to try to tackle. But tonight, you could see it too. Like he is one player. You know, Giannis doesn't really do it much. Brunson didn't really do it until what was that game? Oh, I'm blanking. Game 6. Yeah, game 6. Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell was really good. I don't think Nembhard ever really stopped him much, or Nesmith. But SGA and Brunson, they'll show some frustration. Like if you get into him enough, and there was one time where Nembhard really got into him, and he kind of shoved Nembhard again, and they kind of looked at each other like, dude, get off me. It was after a shot. Like it was SGA got fouled by somebody, and then Nembhard came up to try to take the ball away from him and like kind of like shoved him a little bit. And you know, they're good friends, like really good friends. But yeah, Andrew, I think benefits some from knowing how SGA plays because he's been around him for so long throughout his life. I think they played together since they were 7. But yeah, 9 of 20, that's not going to do it. I mean, that's not MVP level. That's not MVP level. Nobody will talk about that, but that is not MVP level. 24 points. That's too bad. But again, he's such a good player. Quietly gets back out, like, because he'd struggled in the first half quite a bit, but then all of a sudden he's got 24 points, and he started to hit some shots there at the end. But in the fourth quarter, he wasn't as great. I didn't think that he had been. I mean, there was a point in game 2 where I didn't think he was ever going to miss. So a really, really good performance by Andrew Nembhard on SGA, and that defense for the Pacers was just excellent tonight. I think an area where they're going to want to get better is trying to eliminate the amount of threes that OKC are hitting. I mean, they shot 45% tonight from 3. I think at the half they were shooting 55%. I mean, they were just burying the Pacers with their threes, and it was creating quite a challenge. I thought if the Pacers were going to lose that game, it was going to come down to the 3-point margin, because the Pacers were shooting at 27%, I believe, at halftime, whereas OKC was shooting at 55%. Pacers ended the night shooting 33% from three. So they've yet to really, I mean, besides that fourth quarter in the first game, they've really yet to shoot well from three. I think it's coming. I think looking forward to game 4, it's something I think that we can discuss definitely as being a key to the game. And I think as we start to preview game 4, we will talk about that. But again, I thought that the 3-point shooting was going to be the difference, but the Pacers were just so very good defensively. And then in the fourth quarter, really turned it on. The Pacers shoot 51.8% from the field tonight on 44 of 85 shooting. Shot 6 more times than the Thunder. Another big difference, the Thunder, according to NBA.com, I did see there's 19 somewhere else, but NBA.com has 20 turnovers. Sorry, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. It's personal fouls. 17 turnovers, sorry, was the total for the Thunder tonight compared to the Pacers, who only had 13 tonight. So I thought the Pacers controlled the possession battle very well. If you look at rebounding too, the Pacers I thought were the better rebounding team as far as just getting rebounds when they needed to late in the game. They did get out rebound, I think, by 6, but it felt like later on in the game when the Pacers were making their run at the end of the game, they were getting more offensive rebounds. They were causing more problems. And when those smaller lineups out there, the Pacers were capitalizing on those rebounds that they were getting. So ultimately, OKC was pretty good on the boards, but not in the way that they did allow the Pacers to score off of those second chance points quite a bit. The Pacers had 13, where OKC only had 7. So the Pacers were capitalizing off of some of those rebounds that they'd gotten. But I thought that a lot of those 50-50 balls were going to Pacers tonight, which is always a good sign. Points in the paint. Let's talk about that, because that is something that we really struggled with last game. I think we were beat by like almost 20 something. Tonight, Pacers win that points in the paint battle, 50-48. So very close. Fast break points. I didn't know these still existed because neither of these teams let you run out too far. But the Pacers scored 17 fast break points, OKC 10. So again, the advantage for the Pacers. I thought towards the end of the game, the Pacers were playing at their level, their speed, and that ended up being a big difference in this game tonight. 11 blocks by the Pacers. The Pacers were really good around the rim. Miles Turner, pay that man, pay him a lot of money, because he was the difference in the fourth quarter. He had 2 huge blocks. One was on Chet after Chet was winding up to shoot a 3, I think off of a second chance. And then I believe the other one was Shea at the rim. And there might have been one where he deflected it. I think he deflected another one in the fourth off of somebody. Because he ended up, yeah, it was the fourth. So it was, I know the block on Chet. I remember the block on SGA. I think he had a jump ball with somebody because he grabbed it, and that might have been SGA's. But he ends up blocking another one off of somebody's leg. Might have been J-Dub or Caruso. Can't remember. But anyway, Miles Turner had 3 blocks at the end of that game, and were massive blocks. Hit great shots towards the end of the game. I mean, he really struggled from the field tonight. I didn't think he shot it very well at all, but he had a big shot in the fourth. That was pretty crucial for them to get. I think they were, at that point, they were up, I want to say 6 or 7, and he ended up putting that in and extended the lead further. But tonight, yeah, Miles Turner was just not good. I think what I saw was 3-11 from what I'd seen, but let me double check. Yeah, 3-11 from the field, only 27%. He hit 1 3, missed 4, and only grabbed 2 rebounds. He was somebody that tonight the game just looked too fast for him. But in the fourth quarter, like I said, like he's got this ability. He stays in games no matter how bad he's been. Miles has always been really good about staying engaged. He doesn't get too down on himself, I don't think. And there's been a lot of games that I can remember where he's just not had a good shooting night, but has made some big defensive plays towards the end of the game. And tonight was one of those. I mean, tonight without him, OKC's right in the game at the end of that quarter. So pay Miles, pay that man. He is so vital to what we do. What else? Anything else that I want to talk about? Yeah, I think just Benedict Mathurin, 27 points off the bench tonight for Ben. It just his ability to score at the clip he does and the amount of minutes he gets is just insane. He shot 75% tonight, 66 from 3, 7 from 8 from the free throw line, which is something that you want to talk about somebody that's good at drawing foul. He is good at drawing foul. Like he's not scoring SGA level, obviously. He's not an MVP of the league, but like if you put him up against SGA too, he gets a similar kind of whistle. He really does. I've always thought that. I was like, Pacers have never really had the guy that gets the whistle or is crafty enough to get like the whistle, unless it was Reggie. I think they have one in Ben. I really do. I think because he's so strong and quick, he gets by people. And then when people hit him, I think because he is so strong looking and he's very physical, I think when people hit him, the refs think that he got drilled. So they're just like, oh, yeah, that's a foul. He must have got crushed. When there is times that he doesn't get hit, but they think he does. And it's good. So 27 points tonight from him, 22 from Halliburton, 21 from Siakam. So huge performances from those three. Basically you got the big three performance out of Ben, Mathurin, and Ben, Tyrese, and Siakam. Great game by TJ McConnell tonight. 5 assists, 5 steals for TJ. He was also living in the passing lanes and taking off with them. Pacers had 13 steals tonight. It's crazy. 11 blocks. That might be even crazier. But Obi Toppin some big blocks too. Like I thought Obi Toppin was good defensively and getting rebounds at the end of the game. Tyrese almost had a triple-double. I just realized that. He had 9 rebounds, 11 assists, and 22 points. Overrate that. Unbelievable. Wow. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and preview Game 4 in this episode. We'll talk about some of the keys, some of the adjustments I think that the Pacers can make. Actually, you know what? We'll just talk about Game 4, and then I'll record something after this. That'll be So we'll separate them. I'll post this one tonight, and then the preview for Game 4 I'll post tomorrow afternoon at some point. But yes, Game 4, teams that win to go ahead 2-1 in a series after being 1-1 have gone on to win the series 80% of the time. So the Pacers, if the trend continues, have an 80% chance that they're looking at to win the NBA Finals. So in the 41 previous NBA Finals that were tied at a game apiece, the Game 3 winner went on to win 33 of those times. That's a huge advantage. Huge. So that's good. I mean, that's what you wanted to do. You want to protect your home floor. You stole home court advantage in Game 1, even though you might not have deserved to do that. You did it. And the only thing that matters when you're in these series is wins, man. It doesn't matter how many times the team has had the advantage. The Pacers only led for like a minute and 50 before this game. That should even out a little bit more now because they led for a lot of this game. But yeah, what a game. 2-1 lead, huge performances from guys that were just supposedly some of the worst players that have ever existed in the NBA, according to sources. But yeah, just an unbelievable performance on the NBA Finals stage from a player that's only been in the postseason 1 year in Benedict Mathurin, and Tyrese Halliburton playing in his second postseason. They did it. They put the pressure on OKC, and OKC did not handle it well. But Pacers lead 2-1. Game 4, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Friday night, June 13th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. That's probably going to do it for me tonight. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, that fourth quarter was a massive, massive quarter for the Pacers. the 4-minute mark, right at the 5-minute mark. They're on a 14-5 run, and I felt like that was what ultimately sealed it for them. I really did. Once they got up by like 7 around the 2-minute mark, it was over. Just because of how good defensively they'd been, and the Thunder just could not find anything offensively. So, great job by the Pacers tonight. Looking forward to Friday. I think that the Pacers have a very good chance of going up 3-1 in this series if they continue to use some of the pieces that they figured out tonight. I think the Thunder obviously are going to come out with major desperation. I don't expect them to shoot that well from 3-point range. I expect SGA will be better, but I don't think you get that same performance from Dort. I really don't. I mean, he's just trend would say that he's not going to do that again on a back-to-back night, shooting 4 of 5 from 3. Caruso was 2 of 2. He didn't miss one. Chet didn't make a 3. That's wild because he was really good in that first quarter. But, I mean, he had 13 that first quarter. He only ended up with 20. So I felt like the Pacers did a nice job of limiting him. Jalen Williams was really good tonight. He was 9 of 18. He was really good tonight, I thought. So probably their best player on the floor. He was good defensively, making some real tough shots too. The Pacers were struggling with him. But again, fourth quarter, I thought that he was okay, but he wasn't phenomenal. He was 2 of 5 and only had 6 points. But credit to Pacers defense. Yeah, so that'll do it. We're going to end it here. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep babbling. Pacers win 2-1 lead in the NBA Finals, win a NBA Final game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It's the first time they won a playoff game in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I think it was Conseco in 2000 when they won it last against Lakers, a home game in the NBA Finals. So, yeah, really fun night. I had a blast. Let's do this again on Friday. We will be back after Friday's game to recap that. But before that, you can listen to our preview, which is in the next episode, where we talk Game 4, adjustments that need to be made, some things the Pacers can do to help their chances to go up 3-1 in this best-of-7 series for the NBA Finals. They're 2 wins away from an NBA championship. I didn't think I'd ever say that about these Indiana Pacers, but it is true. And Pacer fans, I'm getting more and more excited as the days go on. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your morning/evening. And if you're listening to this in the early wee hours of Thursday morning, thanks. We appreciate it so far. The support's been great. We're over on YouTube at the Pacers Fever Show, anywhere you can find your podcast at the Pacers Fever Show, and then social media is the Pacers Fever Show. You can email us at pacerfevershow@gmail.com. Always looking for a co-host. We cover the Indiana Pacers and the Indiana Fever. So always looking for some co-hosts or some guests. Let me know in the comments what you think about Game 3. What are our chances look like in Game 4? What were some key takeaways that you got from this game? Who was your star player tonight? For me, I think it was Benedict Mathurin, but unbelievable performances from your star guys, and that's what you ultimately need to win a championship. So again, Pacers 2 wins away. Let's see if we can get 1 win away as we close in on Game 4 this Friday night.